Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Rick DiClemente with Astrology Unplugged. We're an astrology show. We talk mostly astrology, but we also talk about many other topics every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. You're watching this on YouTube. If you'd like to join us any Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, then you simply go here to my website, starself.com/unplugged, and that will get you connected for free 2-hour show live. This show is recorded. I'm going to do the recording. I did do it. Okay. It's recorded and then it's posted on YouTube on Thursdays. This is approximately night number 96, and I wanted to let you know what's upcoming on the show, because as of about 2 months ago, I started to change the show and take some of the pressure off of me, so it doesn't have to always be astrology. It can be sometimes different topics. Next week, we're going to have the wonderful Stephen Poplin back with us. Stephen is coming back from Europe as I speak. He lives in Iowa. Stephen is a wonderful hypnotist, regressionist. He's been doing it a long, long time. I met him almost 25 years ago. He was on our show before. He's got his second book out. He will be here to talk to you about life in between lives, your questions about what happens during hypnosis, during regression, past lives, etc. He's excellent. That will be next week, next Thursday. The shows are always Thursday at 8 o'clock. The following week will be Astro, 9:20. 9:27, the Reverend Kim Wilson's joining us from, I believe, Texas. Maybe she's up in Maine still. She'll be joining us to speak about A Course in Miracles. She is a reverend of the spiritual practice. It's not a religion. She'll be answering any of your questions. She's very down to earth. She's not heavy mind tripping, which the Course in Miracles can be, but you've all heard so much about it. We're going to try to explain the very basic tenets of A Course in Miracles. Following the next week, which is unbelievable to me, because that's the 100th anniversary of the show. I guess they call it a week anniversary. But a very special guest, Nick Arondes, will be joining us. Nick Arondes, author of the wonderful book, What Happens When You Let Go and Let God. He is an absolute expert on A Course in Miracles. So we're going to have A Course in Miracles 2 weeks in a row, and I have nothing to do with it. That's just how the Holy Spirit shaped this whole thing. Nick is marvelous. He wrote one of the most effectual books that I've ever read, because he really teaches you how to let go and how you really can't do anything, and quit planning and just start going with the flow. And it sounds easy, doesn't it? And he's a Virgo, which is really double hard. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really grateful that he's joining us on October 4th. The next week is Astro, where I'll dig up something astrological. The next week, something different, October 18th, where I put my girlfriend to work. And the whole evening will be me and her talking about going through these 10 years of Pluto and Capricorn. We started in 05. We started writing articles in 06. It hit Capricorn in 08. We are 10 years into it. We're going to talk about what it is and what it isn't. We'll talk about how it's grown through society. She's especially good with social vision, being the Aquarian. She can see into the future, the implications. In case you didn't know that, every Aquarian you meet, replace them with the word implication, ramifications, implications. That's what Aquarians are. That's what they do. You got this, you got that. What does it mean? Other people, you got this, you got that, so what? Not Aquarians. 2 and 2 equals 500 to them. And it's their ability. It's beautiful to watch. Then we have more Astro stuff coming up in early November. I'm not got the show finalized. In early November, we're going to have 3 or 4 special guests, all talking about the rise of the divine feminine once again and the planet Eris. Tonight's going to be really unusual because tonight's topic is about Eris, and I'm going to be showing you where your Eris is. In case somebody doesn't know, just type into Google, where is Eris, or where was Eris, and Google will show you an Eris ephemeris, which means it will go back and show you where it was in the 1920s, whatever. Eris was, let me get this straight now. Eris went into Aries. It takes 540 years to go around. It went into Aries in 1921. It's spending 120 years in the sign of Aries. In my life, it's gone from 6 of Aries to 24. It's moved 18 degrees in my lifetime. These outer planets especially are not circular orbits. They're very elliptical. So they may spend a lot of time in one sign and relatively few in another. I will be giving you your position. The reason for tonight is I want to show you how an astrologer very reluctantly and very carefully puts a new planet on their charts. You have to really be something to get added to a chart with Venus and Mars and Uranus and Saturn, because they have well-known, well-tested through the decades, through the millennia, natures. So you don't just throw it on the chart and say, well, that's why I'm all screwed up, because Eris is there. I've already got people doing that. I'm like, please, bear with me, and I'm going to show you why. What do we know about Eris? Eris was photographed in 03, and she was discerned specifically and pointed out in July of 05. And her original name was B3000 something, some number, and they didn't know what to name her, so they gave her this astronomical number. And in 05, they started to discern her nature, because the planet tells us she's not a planet, she's a dwarf planet. All that means is she's really far away, and they don't want to add 80 new planets, so they call her a dwarf planet. You figure Pluto, 240 years around the circle, she's twice as long, 540 years. So she takes a long time. It's so fascinating to figure out that one of the main things we know about her, she's a renegade, she's a discordant energy, but we know that there's positive energy in there somewhere. She's kind of reckless. And what's the first name the working title they gave to her was lawless. Lawless. So they named her, what was the name of the girl on the show? What? You got to unmute yourself.
Lucy Lawless?
What? Xena. They named her Xena temporarily. And her name was Lucy Lawless. Thank you. If you're going to talk, you got to unmute yourself. Okay. Then in 05, they started to, the forces that be, talk amongst themselves, and they figured out that she is permanently named Eris from the Greek mythology. And Eris is a very long story. She is very high up in the echelon of the gods. Her brother was Mars, or Ares. She was not invited to a certain party. She came back and she had fits with this party, and she caused a lot of chaos and discord, and thus she has this name of being Discordia. Her original name, the Roman names called her Discordia. So we discover her in 05, and let me show you what's going on astrologically. As we welcome Susan Greaves, who I've never met, but you're welcome. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. Okay. This is today's chart. It's where the planets were a couple hours ago. As you notice, I've used a different kind of chart just to show you the zodiac. These are the houses 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the zodiac. 1, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. For a little while, I'm going to show you the zodiac. I do it mentally, but I think it's important for tonight's discussion to show you this. So, Aries, here's the sign of Aries, the end of the zodiac in the beginning. And in 1921, Eris, this is Eris here. Eris had finished 540 years going around. And in 1921, she entered Aries again. Interesting that she entered Aries between the two world wars. The 1914 through 1917 World War I, then the 1930s rise of Hitler. Interesting to note, but you don't jump on these things. That's what I want to show you and stress so much. You got to have great restraint when you invite a new planet to the party, because these things are complex. You hear me talking 40 years later, still learning about Pluto. I've been studying her 40 years. She still fools me. She has different sides. So we don't know much about Eris. So she comes along in 1921. She sneaks through Aries. 120 years she's going to be here. 120 years. She'll be out of Aries and into Taurus around 2040. Right now she's right here. She has two symbols. Or you can choose either symbol you want. Many planets do. Her other symbol is like the planet Mars, but pointed downward. The circle with the barb sticking downward. I like this, even though it's very similar to the sign of Pisces. The sign of Eris, the planet, is similar to the sign of Pisces. But I like this myself. That's what I use. So, as I say, when I was born, back in the 50s, she was at 6 degrees of Aries, right around here. She's moved all this way to 23, 24 degrees now. When she was discovered, I've been telling you wrong. I am incorrect. I'm apologizing. When she was discovered in 03, 05, she was around 20 degrees, and she was not with Uranus. I was telling you along last several weeks how she was discovered while Uranus was together with her. That's not correct. Uranus was one sign away, but what happened, she got popular in the last couple of years when she was together with Uranus, because she's the planet of uprising. She's the planet of I'm going to be heard. See any of that lately? That's why I confused it with the parallel being appearing with the planet Uranus. The astrologers are pretty sure that she rules the sign of Libra. Now, this does not take the major rulership of Venus ruling Libra. There's no doubt about that. But sometimes when you have more than 12 planets, they can do double duty. She's very concerned about communications between people. She will not let you, I read to you something about this last week. She will not let you make gains in this world if you did so in a crooked fashion. Whoa! You see, when these planets are discovered, it's always one and the same as what's happening with the people, because all things are related. We all have to get over this, oh, did you say, ooh, wasn't that a coincidence? Ooh, isn't that funny? Pluto was discovered in 1930. They're one and the same. I don't know how. I love David Hawkins. I've been fanatically telling you about David Hawkins for weeks and weeks now. But I watched a video the other night and talking about how astrology is just following a bunch of dirt flying by in the sky. Well, Mr. Hawkins, you're wrong. First time I've ever seen him wrong. And what he's really saying is the traditional astrology sucks, and it does. Oh, it's in the fourth house, and the man's going to come to your house, and he's going to connect the pipe, and everything's going to be fine, and you're going to find gold, and that kind of junk. Traditional astrology does stink. But what's kept astrology alive all these years, I hate to say it, is our own selfishness. Oh, I'm a Capricorn. Well, I'm a Libra. Well, I'm one of them. I'm put on my t-shirt. That's what's kept it alive. At least it did, because now, what's happening now is there's a new age of astrologers, and they're getting good. Finally. Finally, because it's a very difficult science. Let me get to the point. So we got this new planet Eris. She's definitely a she. She's a rebel. She's a radical. She can't stand for somebody to not be heard. Now, what's interesting is mine is on Jupiter, same degree in my third house of speaking. You ought to ask Liza. I can't stand it when a talk show host is on the air and asks a question, they won't let the guy answer it or the woman answer it. And I used to marvel at King, Larry King. I don't care for the guy that much, but I marveled at him. He was not judgmental. He would ask the question. He would remain neutral. And I was a stickler about that. And that shows me that my Eris is in the third house. Because that's about Eris. She's about fairness. And I think what's kind of funny is we got a president of the United States who has two-word vocabulary, and one of them's fair. The other one's not fair. So I don't think it's a coincidence that this whole issue of fairness is coming about, that the women are standing up now, they're rising, all this. So nevertheless, we got Eris on the chart. So let me start to explain to you what the problem is. You don't know what Eris is like until she tells us. You don't know until she tells us. And she will reveal herself. There will be false alarms. There will be complexities. And we will learn about these different complex subsets of the archetypal nature. I'm not trying to just use big words, but that's what it's like. These planets are really complex archetypally, and they have subsets to them. That's why a lot of times when I read for you, you'll go, no, and I'll go, well, twist it a little bit, go that, and you'll go, yeah. Because sometimes I pick the wrong part of the archetype. As you get better, you get the right one. And my students, I teach them, if you say this and the readee says, no, that's not true, don't get discouraged. Doesn't mean you're wrong. Try another part of the planet. Because these planets have many sides. So we don't know, but through time we will. Because astrologers are fanatics. And they're going to start doing lots of people's charts and looking at where their Eris is and was. And what happened when planets hit their Eris. So let's go back to today. All right. So we see that right now, if you were born today, your Eris would be a 2354 of Aries. And it's going to go to 24, go back and forth. And it's going to take till 2040 till it goes out and into Taurus. Then it'll go back into Aries, back and forth. And then by that time, Uranus is well on its way. Okay. Now, let me call up a person's chart just to show you what I'm talking about. And I'm gonna pick Erica for the moment. Okay? From our chart selection. Okay. Erica, your Eris is a 636. Most of us in this group are around 6 of Aries, around there. Yours was at 6, Aries 36. Okay. Do you notice how 2 degrees was Venus? 6 degrees away was Mars. So, how do I know what orb to use? Orb means how close together are they before they become important. Some planets are farther apart. They're so strong. Some planets are right together, and they're really not that powerful. It all depends. We don't know her strength yet. We see that Eris is not only in Aries, but we see something remarkable about, I'm going to get her on my screen here. We see something remarkable about Erica here. Having Venus Mars together is a very, very special combination. And what's so interesting to me about this is this. Venus and Mars, even though they're 8 degrees apart, are known to be very narcissistic. Almost always, and especially in Aries. And I've often wondered why when I talk to Erica doesn't come across as narcissistic. She doesn't. I've seen other people with Venus and Mars, even in Pisces or anywhere else, and they're very narcissistic. But now we know that she's got Eris right between them. And Eris is the planet of fairness. And if we know anything about Libra, Libra really doesn't want people to be narcissistic. It wants people to be balanced in their relationships with the other person. This is why we're getting knowledge that it's the ruler of Libra. Fair discussions. So Erica might start to come off as that way, but her Eris balances her quite a bit. And we notice right across, also Neptune is sitting there, 8 degrees. So Neptune largely won't let these two planets be arrogant. It won't let these two planets be narcissistic because Neptune is so selfless. So this Pisces quality of Neptune, along with the quality of Eris, are greatly affecting these two relatively weak planets called Venus and Mars. The outer, yes.
Excuse me, I forgot to tell you last time, but I discovered I was born at 5:30. So my Neptune is in the first house now.
Okay,
Actually,
well, your Neptune always was in the first house in my mind, but anyhow, I will make that correction later.
it's still opposite and everything, it's just in a different house.
Yeah, well, it's going to have a greater impact. But the Neptune is a great, strong factor, just like we saw today with Marilyn, who's a Pisces and a strong Neptune. But we're seeing the impact of Neptune and Eris upon the Venus and Mars. So we don't know yet what degree. So let me start going down through this list. Okay, so I can get that done for you. Karen DeBerry, your Neptune, your Eris is at 720. Very important because it makes a right angle to your ascendant. It's in your house of philosophy. So we're going to want to look at this. Susan F. is not with us. Wally with us? Wally's not with us. Okay. John, you probably looked yours up, John, already. Yours is up at the top of this chart. Very strong. 14, 18.
Conjunct my Mercury.
Yeah, but square
Square
the ascendant. That's the main thing. I've got to turn somebody's mic off. Anyhow. Hello, Kim. Good to have you with us. So, John, yours is really powerful, up there with Mercury squared to the ascendant. This, I would argue with you already, is the most powerful planet in your chart. How's them apples? And it's opposite Pluto. You've got a whole new chart to look at because you've always thought Pluto, Mercury squared your moon. Now it's all three of these. Karen is not here. Marilyn Swart is not here. Suzanne's not here yet. Mark's not here, right? Our Marilyn from today. Marilyn, yours is at 506. And let me get this for our newcomer here. Susan, welcome. Do you want your chart done, dear? Susan Greaves?
Yeah. Am I muted? I'm unmuted.
You're unmuted, and I will have your chart stored here for future discussions. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay. So I will have to ask you publicly. Let me get your chart in here.
Okay.
Okay.
12. Ready?
1 second, please. Susan Greaves. And the birthday is 12.
14.
14.
46.
46. She's got the wonderful stellium of 3 planets in Libra. What time of day?
2:45 a.m.
AM, what city?
Brooklyn, New York.
How did you find us?
Someone who attends told me about you.
Oh,
I don't see her here. She was in another class I was in.
what county is that? Kings?
Kings, yes.
All right. I want to keep your record. And we have you here. And now we got you saved. And
Yeah.
I'm going to
Thanks.
save your record here. And I'm also going to save it in Alliance. You are a Sag, and yours is at 5:32. Okay?
Yes.
All right, let me go back to my list. All right, now, Jan, I've not done yours. Jan, yours is at 7:37. They're all real close together because it doesn't move that fast. Susan Aver. Susan Aver, I got to get you from the list. Okay. Why did I not do this? Okay, Susan, yours is at 7:40. Somebody needs to be muted here, okay? Kim, hi Kim. This is the Reverend Kim Wilson. They'll be with us in a couple weeks. I'm going to change so people see your name, Kim Wilson. And Kim, and hello. Okay, let's see. Get care. Hello, Linda Platt. Okay. Kim, let's take a look at you. In 1955, Kim, yours was at 8:42. Anybody I'm missing here? I need Linda. Linda, what's the beginning of your last name?
AHZRAU.
Okay. If your mic is on, please mute it. Linda, yours is at 4:01 of Aries. And Linda Platt. Then we'll get to work. Linda, yours is 7:24. You can look this up on the ephemeris through Google if you lose this. Did I get everybody? Barbara. Need to get Barbara hers. Obviously, I got some updating to do. Okay. For a database administrator, how's that? It's pretty poor. Okay, yours is at 6:48. All right. Now let's take an example. Melody just arrived. Let's get hers. Melody, yours is at right there with Chiron at 1317. 1317, you're just a baby. All right. Let me use melodies as that's not a good example. Let me go back one. I don't like it's interrupted by Chiron there. Let me use Linda Platts. No, you're too close to Jupiter. Linda Azrael, too close to the sun. Kim Wilson. Okay, Kim's a real good example. You see Chiron is out here all by itself. Let me get it on your screen. So Kim's chart, you see her Chiron is out here by itself. Okay? All right. Number one, we have to start testing. For example, we now have a bucket pattern. The entire chart is a bucket swinging from Chiron. That would mean, I'm sorry, Chiron, I get them mixed up. So they're so new to me. Eris. Eris is new. Chiron is since 1977, but I've only been following Chiron about 10 years. So these are two. You see, I haven't grayed out. They're not even graduated to full black yet. This is the Eris symbol. So what this tells me is I don't care if she's a Virgo or not. I don't care if she got Venus and Mars in Virgo or not. This tells me she's a big-time renegade. She's a big-time outlaw. And tomorrow night, I'm going to go see the Outlaws with Willie Nelson and Van Morrison in the first row. All right. How about that?
Yay.
Let me tell you what. A person with a Sun and Venus and Mars in Virgo is not a renegade. But I know Kim. Kim is not a wilting little flower. She's got a lot of life to her. So I'm starting to give little points to what I see. I'm going to be using little point systems. I'm gathering little data, but I'm not using any pen. I'm going to use little pencils for months and months and years as I gain knowledge about this new body. So I see it and I say to myself, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's opposite Mercury. Here's her Mercury sitting in Libra. She should be very smooth when she talks. There shouldn't be any edge to her. Well, she's kind of happy-go-lucky when she talks. Now, I don't know enough about Eris, but I now have a note in my mind that when I talk to Kim, her brain and her mind works with an opposition to Eris. So I'll start studying how she talks to me and applying adjectives to Eris. Now, what if it's next to somebody's moon? What's across from somebody's moon? What if it's next to somebody's sun? So these are major clues on how we will go about discerning her nature. The next thing we will do, we will start to go back in somebody's lifetime. What happened to Kim when a planet hit there? What happened when a planet transiting by got to 8 degrees here and made a right angle to it? So what happened when planets hit that Eris? And what do we find in the natal chart when we combine the two? That's our first biggest clues. Next is really big. What do we find? This is probably the biggest one. What happens if we find somebody with Eris right on the midheaven, right on the ascendant, right on the nadir? Now I'm going to switch to my other type of chart because I can't read these types. So I'm going to change my wheel over to this one here, which is what I use. And it'll be more familiar to you. Okay, what happens if somebody's born with Eris right there? It's got to show up big time. Your job, this is your job, this is your calling. Your job and your calling has to be Erisian. It has to pick up that nature. The closer it is, the more impact. If it's further into the 10th house, it has less impact, less impact, less impact. But a planet right near there, or a planet near the ascendant, or a planet near the nadir, or a planet near the descendant. These 4 angles are critical. They're critical secrets in astrology because when planets are found near them, you are a lot like that planet. Now, in Linda's chart, Kim's chart, I'm sorry, we don't see one very close. Pluto's 5 degrees away. Saturn is very far away. Mars is 6 degrees away. So we see that her ascendant is affected largely by Pluto and Mars. Let's look at somebody else. Okay, let's take a look at Melody's chart. Okay, in Melody's chart. I wish I could get everybody on. There's Melody, looking lovely. Now, I was looking at this earlier, Melody, and I flipped out at this. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Now you've got the.
A lot of Eris.
See, the reason I've been enamored with Melody is because she's, of the people I teach and talk with, she's the most like me. Now, I'm not talking about all the hours she's spending raising her kids. I'm talking about she gets chart after chart after chart, and she reads books and she reads and she studies. And I know a lot of people don't do that. They don't have the fever. And the reason for that fever is because of the Uranus opposition to Chiron. Uranus-Chiron is the most common aspect that you find with astrologers. If they don't have it, I don't know where they get it, because the old timers didn't have it. But you'll notice it's at 14, that's at 17, that's at 16, her son's at 13, her descendants at 16. So you got a huge grand cross here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 bodies involved. So now we know there's so many ways to be a detective in astrology. We now know that she's very Erisian. And what's interesting to me, watch this. Watch this. She didn't find out till now. That means that in her brain wasn't ready for Erisian qualities till now. And if you talk with Melody like I have for many years, you will know that she's going through a lot of changes which have to do with, what about me? I matter. I'm a mother of 4, I'm a wife, but you can see this brand new awakening of the feminine is not just caused by Mars or Uranus, Pluto. It's Eris.
Yeah.
Give you another story. You're shocked, aren't you? I'm shocked. I had a Gemini mother, no longer with us. And that meant that every time I talked to her about my birth time, she gave me a different time. Talk about a nightmare for astrologers. And I would work with this time and it wouldn't work, and I'd work with this time, it wouldn't work, and I'd work with this. And all of a sudden, one day, there was an eclipse on my sun. There was an eclipse on my sun, and I got her locked down with, I put nails all around her and locked her down so she wouldn't change. And I sat my dad down and said, tell me about my birth. Because I was born in a car next door. New Year's Day, my mom felt the urge. They scrambled to get the car together to get to the hospital. And back then, the people in the hospital worked from 12 to 8 and 8 to 4. Well, this guy arrived home at 8 o'clock, 10 minutes after. He worked the shift at the hospital. He said, don't drive, get in the car, I'll take you. And I was born in this car. And I know it's funny. And back then, they had red emergency cars. They weren't even ambulance. They weren't even station wagons. They were cars, red. I was born in the back seat, so I got the birth time narrowed down then. But it was the eclipse that day on my sun which validated that maybe today my mom knows what she's talking about. So it shows you we're so directly related to all these planetary events. Jan knows this well because she and I work very closely with symbols and signs. So Melody, what I'm saying to you, this is extremely important. Now, not only are we saying to Melody is this a right moment to put the Eris module in your head? Okay? Last year we couldn't take the Eris module, put it in your head. 2 years ago we couldn't do it. A year from now we couldn't do it. It's got to be now. That's how it works. You're ready for Eris. Now I would suggest to you, as a studying astrologer, see how complex this is? It's no wonder we don't have many astrologers. I would suggest to you in your daily diary or your journal that you start keeping copious notes about what you think are Erisian impulses. Okay? And they're going to lead you down the road to perfecting your vision of Eris. Okay? But see, we got lucky here. And I will also tell you, since the Uranus opposite Chiron, let me go back there. Since the Uranus opposite Chiron has been such a strong symbol of your astrological interest, making a T-square to your sun, you will always be an Erisian type of astrologer. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
There's just no doubt about it. I don't know what that means yet. I got my guesses, but I got to be very careful not to guess. Because when you guess, you put ideas in people's minds. And that's not always good.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't believe I read for people 30 years ago, told them 99 great things and one lukewarm thing, and they remember one horrible thing,
Mm-hmm.
as you know.
Nice.
Okay, so what else are we finding here? It's in the 10th house, so it's aggressive. It's next door to Chiron, and Chiron we know is very Virgoan. Okay, so you're getting a cleaned up version of Eris just by the nature of being next to it. We're getting the two new planets right there, and they're in the sign of Aries, which means no holds bar. So very interesting stuff we watched just watching you. Now with you, it's going to be harder for you to uncover Eris by transit, because when you look at Jupiter going over Eris, it also is going over Chiron. So you're not going to learn by transit. You could look at age 4, when the solar arc, when the two ran into each other, but that's probably pretty hard to tell. This is, after all, a very extremely universal planet. And I got to tell you, I tell you folks, there's more planets beyond it. Okay? How about Maki? That's one of the next ones.
Yeah.
Maki. He's one of the next on the list. Make. So let's go on to more people. That's how we learn. All right, Mark's not here. Susan, let's look at you, Susan. I'll get Susan on the screen here. Susan, dear, where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, okay, welcome aboard. Nice to have you. Susan, if you're not familiar with the show, the past 95 are all on YouTube under my name.
Okay.
If you would like, and they're all, the subject heading is widely varied. The only difference is in the last couple of months, I'm breaking away from a lot of astrology, getting into more spiritual matters. Okay, we see the wonderful Chiron is rising in her chart. So we know already, I don't even look at the rest of the chart. We know that she's very Virgoan. She's got a moon in Virgo. She's got Chiron rising. And we know if anybody is not Virgoan, it's Sagittarians. They're square to each other. Why? Virgo is the sign that's fastidious, neat, and orderly.
Right.
And Sag is the one, I can't bother with that stuff. I'm having fun. So we know that she is a combination.
I'm in charge of quality control.
Yes, and you've got the 1946 Saturn and Pluto, which these people in 1946 and 47. These people are tremendous survivors. Do not back Susan into a corner, okay? You won't like it because you'll come out fighting. This is very tough. She's very proud, very strong. She has the sun opposite Uranus, which is what I have. Hers is opposite by 2 degrees. And look at what we have here. A bucket pattern to Eris in the 6th house. Now, see, here's where you have to be so careful. Because we already see that she's very proud. Whatever she chooses to do, job, 6th house, 10th house, job, skill set. Whatever she chooses to do, she's going to defend it. She's already a Sag, so she doesn't care if you like it or not. But Eris sitting here, remember, Eris is the rebel. She's the rebel. She's the lawless one. And we got her right on the cusp. Right on the cusp, not even into the cusp yet. Right on the cusp of the 6th house. So this tells me without a doubt, remember, when a planet is in a house, it's the strongest when it's at the beginning, or even a little before. Then it gets weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. So this is a major symbol that her job skill sets are Erisian. So may I ask you what kind of work that you do?
I work in treatment. I work in women's treatment.
Women's treatment?
Drug treatment, yes.
Okay. Now that's very Neptunian. And we see that Uranus coming out of that 8th house, which is the Scorpio house. The Neptune is about treatment. The Chiron is all about fixing people. All the Scorpio planets get these people transformed back,
That's right.
back on their feet. But this Eris isn't hurting you one bit. As a matter of fact, what I would say to you with Eris there is you've been saying, you know how this whole movement now of the Me Too and the women are rising?
Yeah.
You're saying now, where in the hell you been?
Right.
You're saying, I've been there for 50 years waiting on you. Where you been? You're way ahead of your time. I like to amuse Kim because Kim has a nice laugh.
Well, go ahead, abuse me.
Okay, I'll amuse you. Okay, Susan, this is tremendous verification. So this is teaching me about what Eris is like. But you see, I can't learn a lot about Eris because she has other things in the chart that are Virgoan. She's got Scorpion energy. She got Neptune energy. I can only learn a piece about her. But it answers my question, what do I do with somebody that has it as a bucket pattern? Which is the whole bucket's here and the one planet's here. That planet's the strongest planet in the chart. Now, Susan, if you have Libra qualities, which are not represented in your chart, I would be interested to know, because that would tell me it's coming from the Eris rulership. Libra qualities of really liking nice clothes, liking nice dinners, pleasant conversations, loving debate, somewhat argumentative, very important that your house is very pretty. You're giving me a so-so, right?
Yeah, so.
Okay.
I'm also an artist, so I do, and a photographer. My first education was photography. I did that for many years.
Okay, well, the photography is the Neptune.
Yeah, it's the Neptune part of me.
Okay. And it sounds to me like you know a lot of astrology already.
I know some.
Okay, well, I'm a photographer too and a filmmaker, and I have a very powerful Neptune influence. And honestly, your Neptune is not that strong. So we got to look further and see what's happening here. This Neptune is not that strong because it's into the 12th house where it's kind of hidden. You don't have anything in Pisces except nothing's in Pisces here. So where's the photographer coming from? I think I know what it is. Most photographer freaks come from a strong Neptune because they love thinking in images, photographic minds. Yours is coming from the Leo. when you have a strong Leo in the chart, you just got this burning desire to create.
Okay.
I got to create. Okay, that's different. So your photography is unusual. It's coming from the Leo creativity. And probably when we look in your past lives and stuff, we would see that. I do want to take a moment and let you know something before I forget. Pardon me for going off subject. We'll come back to it. There are a lot of, as you know, I do a lot of harmonics. Harmonics are derivatives of the birth chart. There are many people that have been doing harmonics for 100 years, and they believe that you can't put them in a house. The planets in the houses don't make sense. The aspects to the planets don't make sense. The transits to the planets don't make sense. And I say, hooey. I say you haven't done your research. I understand their point of view. I understand where it's coming from. But I'm trying to tell you that Mr. Trump has a son about, where are we now? 19. In his 10th harmonic, the 10th harmonic is the harmonic that shows your public standing. It is the chart where Humpty Dumpty lives. Mr. Trump's chart, the sun is at 19 and Pluto is at 19. Exactly. So when you look at the news in the past 24 hours, say, it's not a regular planet. It's Pluto, and it's activating the 10th harmonic because it's threatening the public standing chart. So I say to you, those who do harmonics, give them more chances before you start to say that they're not prone to other planetary transits. Susan Rick said Eris was more Virgo, and I am wrong. Eris is not the Virgoan one, Chiron is. And I'm mixing my words up again. Chiron, as I said in the book, Chiron is the ruler of Virgo, in my opinion. Eris is a ruler of Libra. And we notice when we read about Eris, she's all about fairness. I just said that. Didn't you listen to me? How come I don't get equal time? When you talk, I can't talk? That's Erisian. These are Erisian qualities. She has, for some reason, we don't know yet, she has a rather negative personality, a rather negative quality. We don't know why, but I'm not tricked that easily. I think these negative archetypes come from something deeper that's very positive. That's what I'm digging to find out. So let's go. Isn't Virgo a bit nervous? Yeah, it's kind of hyperfix. Hyperfix is what I would say. Let me move on. Let's take a look at some other charts. John, did we do yours?
Yeah, we did, Rick.
Okay, all right. Barbara Seymour. I don't think we analyzed it. Okay. Let's take a look at Barbara Seymour, which is interesting because we ended with her last week. Okay, well, I got to get Barbara on my screen. I want a screen where I can see everybody in the chart. All right. All right. 6 degrees, 48 minutes. All by itself. It's not a bucket pattern because there's really not a bucket shape here. If we erase this Jupiter, it would be a bucket. So we have Eris in Aries in the 5th house. Do you notice how it's opposite Mercury? Okay, now this is going to be very difficult to do because she's got Saturn in Virgo, and I'm going to tell you why. Because your Eris up, where is she? I got to find her on my screen. Hello, Barbara. Eris opposite your Mercury would make you very argumentative. But we know you're Libran, and Libras are very argumentative. But you see all the but you got to do here? You got the sun next to Neptune. You don't mind arguing, but you really don't like it when it gets unpleasant. Right? I'm getting a lot of. It must be Barbara's house. I'm getting a lot of, static. Let's try this again. So it's really hard to discern much about Eris in your chart because about the only, did you say it was square Uranus, John? Somebody said it was square Uranus. Susan, okay, very good. Let me go check that again. Yes, yes, it's closely square to Uranus. And you notice there's no square drawn? That's because I'm not told the computer to include Eris in my squares yet. Very closely square. But I have to tell the computer what I want involved in squares. Okay, Uranus squaring Eris makes it even more disruptive. So, I have known Barbara for a while. I think that's your yeah, we're getting a lot of distortion on your microphone, so I'm going to mute you, Barbara. I've known you for quite a while. You're certainly not argumentative. Libras love to argue, as I wrote in the book. They call it debate. I call it argue. This is a strike against Eris in your chart. In my mind, I got to really think about this. Why is Eris so strong in your chart, and you're not displaying Erisian qualities other than the fact that your sun is next to Neptune? Is that Neptune strong enough to quiet it down? So I don't know. So I'll just leave you as an I don't know. And that's how you do good astrology. You leave it as an I don't know. And you get back to it. That's the smart way. Because the dumb way is to start, well, it means this. Then you're out on a limb and you start believing false stuff and it just all falls apart. We're going to go a few more minutes and I'm going to stop the recording to YouTube and we're going to open it up for questions, etc. I want to go to Linda Platt now. Linda, the reason I do is Linda's been one of my stronger students through the years, and I respect what she has to say. As a matter of fact, I told you November 1st is coming up. I think it's November 1st, and Linda will be one of my guests along with Gina Mazza, and we will have a fourth person. We're going to be talking about the rise of the feminine and Eris. So she's been busy reading about it. Linda is a college professor of English here in the Pittsburgh area. Linda, what are your thoughts so far on Eris as I get to your chart next? What are your thoughts so far?
Well, what I'm interested in right now is I'm actually working with one of my courses about archetypes. You know, we're sort of looking at the hero's journey, and it's part of our reading course. And it's you know, for a lot of reasons, it's a good thing to do pedagogically, but it's also interesting to me. And one of the things about archetypes that it's very clear when you do the reading is that there's always, I don't want to call it a positive side, but there's always, you know, there's always the sort of one side, and then there's the shadow side.
I think, yeah.
And for me, what makes it interesting is that when you read about Eris, everybody's always sort of looking at what I would think of as a shadow side. So what's the other side?
Right.
You know, and that seems very much linked to the fact that when women rise, it's always seen as a negative thing.
And they use the word hysterical.
It's right, hysterical. It's disruptive. You know, it's disruptive. Women are disruptive. But when you're disrupting horror and abomination, that's not a bad thing.
Well, I really like what you're saying, and I'm really flashing on it because think about it. When a major planet is discovered, it is all over our planet. It's the major theme of our planet. And what did Eris do? She got invited. She didn't get invited to a party. So she took a golden apple and she threw it through the window or whatever into the party. And it said on it, "Who's the fairest amongst you?" And they all fought over it. So what she in effect is doing is what people are giving Trump credit for is always doing. Eris drains the swamp. He's Mr. Everglades. Period. He's Mr. Everglades, all capital letters. But she's got that intention to drain the swamp. I don't want to go to this party with all these phony people in here. Say what you got to say and mean what you got to say. And that's neat to me. It's really interesting to associate that with Libra, because Libras by far and away are this sign that are the most disingenuous in general. A lot of Libras are wonderful. They're straightforward, but a lot of them are just, they're buttering your legs. They're trying to go one up on you. They're trying to social climb on you. And it's fascinating to me because she to me, is bringing out the positive, wonderful side of Libra, which is fairness. Let's treat everybody fair. And go ahead. This leads right to what you were saying.
Well, I mean, it's a matter of thinking about. I mean, there's disruption that's sort of Steve Bannon-esque, that's meant to be destructive chaos, and then there's disruption, which is sort of almost Plutonian, which is to say that what we want the disruption to do is to challenge and to call things forward. And we've had millennia of men in power, just millennia after millennia of men in power. And so women, the rise of the feminine, I'm not even going to say women, I'm going to say the rise of the feminine, because this is also the part of men that has been squished and subjugated.
That's right.
The part of men that's about not being afraid of equal power, not being afraid to be vulnerable. So so I guess what I'm mostly interested in is sort of insisting upon making sure that it's not just seen as the shadow, or it's not just seen as
see how fair you're being.
Yeah, well, I can't help it. I'm a Libra.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying to you that Eris it's really making sense now. I know men that don't want to be called he anymore. They want to be called they.
Well, and
they want to be called they, and they got a good argument. But go ahead, it's right down your line.
Well, I mean, I think that that's what's interesting is it's the same with Chiron. I mean, that when you get these new energies, it's like any energy in the chart, and this is probably the most important thing I've learned from you, because I've got all that Scorpio, and I've got Mars in Leo, and and it's at the top of the chart, and I mean that's an asshole sign. If
Trumpish.
It's very Trumpish, and if you let it go.
Yeah.
But what you can do with all of these energies, even if they look extremely challenging and potentially dark, if you're conscious of something, you say, "Oh, okay, where's the positive energy in this? What's the transformative aspect?"
Well, I would also point out to you that second to what happened tonight with Melody, my God, what a message that was. I think Eris, first of all, said, "I think I'll show up when Pluto's 2/3 of the way through Capricorn. That'll be a good time." All right? And Uranus has gone into Taurus. Let's try that. But I think that you're on to something here. And I think not only are you going to be learning for us, you're going to be learning for yourself, because that Pluto in you is not satisfied with the surface description. It wants to look deep, because when you really look deeper into Libra, there's no Libra who's disingenuous. That's just a social consequence. You know, everybody's pure at their heart. So what is it that Libra really wants? And I think that Eris is going to help you find that out. And I don't find that easy.
Well,
I find digging into the core of a Libra person is not easy. It's not simple. It's not just, I need a partner. In my mind, it's foremost, I need somebody as a sounding board, because I'm starting to socialize and I have to check myself. But I think it's even deeper than that. Your thoughts?
Well, sometimes it's hard for me to think about my Libra nature, because there's all that Scorpio rising and Scorpio moon stuff, which I'm much more interested in these days. But I also, in my case, I have Libra and Saturn together. And I've always, we've always talked about how challenging that is, but I always think that that's like the saving grace of my chart.
Which part?
The Libra Saturn. Saturn Libra by the sun.
Yeah.
I think that for me, it's sort of, sun is right in between that and.
Yeah, but let me tell you, interruption here. You're really lucky that Saturn is 4 degrees away and the Neptune is 8 degrees away. You're really lucky. I've seen a whole lot of people with this. And if that sun were any closer to Neptune, you'd be singing a different song. And I agree with you. Saturn is exalted in Libra. It's all about fairness.
Well, and I think for me that I just think I think that while things can, Libra does have that sort of social slick side. And I've spent 60 years chasing partnerships and doing all that kind of stuff. And when I finally got past all that, what matters to me was that's not even so much about a sounding board. That's about thinking about what my role is with other people.
Uh-huh.
What is the nature of love and connection and intimacy that's not about dependency?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So I mean, for me, when I look at my chart, I'm looking at Eris over there in Aries at 7 degrees, and it's like sitting right across from Saturn.
Well, what's intriguing to me is you're coming up with these discoveries, just as I am changing my tune about transits into the 7th house. I mean, heretofore, everybody in the world screaming about transits into the 7th house, marriage and divorce and partnership. It's got other names too, lawyers, officials. But what I'm finding through research is it's got to do with the public role. So many people, I see transits going into the 7th house. And when the transit goes in, they change their public role. They want to wear a different hat. And I think that's a very Libra quality too, that has to do with how do I relate to the society. You got to remember that there are 6 whole signs before Libra that aren't that really ready for the public yet. They're below the ascendant. And all of a sudden, boom, here we are with society. And that's why, if you really look around in a neutral fashion, Libra people, men and women, are really alert. They're on the ball. They're mentally with it. They want to exchange. Libra marriages are almost always marry somebody who is socially savvy, because they just can't stand if it's not. So I think a lot of what you and I are both feeling is we're both picking up on the Eris that's coming into all of our subconsciousness.
Well, and it's like everything else that's sort of going on right now, having watched the hearings today and having watched Kamala Harris take on after Kavanaugh. And I thought, all I could think, this is me sitting there thinking, oh my God, it's like Eris is in the room. and she's standing up and she's saying to him, no, you're going to answer the question, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And I've never seen a woman ever in a public meeting be that aggressive.
What did he finally do?
Well, he just finally, he just admitted he wasn't going to answer things.
Yeah, he's Aquarian. He's very strong mentally.
And he just like, he's not going to do it. But my thinking about this, as I looked at this, as I thought to myself, are we ready for this? Is the
yes and no, yes and no.
Country ready for women that are that strong?
Did you notice how the zodiac is so perfectly timed? This is all coming out after Pluto's 10 years into Capricorn. Pluto's 10 years into Capricorn. It's not just destruction. It's not just disruption. One of the things Eris is saying that kind of coincides with Pluto is, I'm tired of playing these games with you. I don't want to play these games with you. That's one of the reasons I think so many people are following Trump. It's one of the good sides. They're fed up with the games that Washington plays. But in another way, we got bigger games now. Okay, so be it. That's understandable. But I'm going to say goodbye to the YouTubers. Thank you for joining us every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. This will be on YouTube tomorrow, and then we'll have more private discussion. Thank you for joining us.